Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we will be building the very first part of our Bootstrap project site, and that is nothing but the main navigation bar or the collapsible navigation menu of our website. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing which you need to do is that you need to make sure that you include all the Bootstrap CSS and JS files from the Bootstrap's official site. So if you go to Bootstrap sites, here is the link which you need to include in your HTML page, which is the Bootstrap CSS links and the Bootstrap JS link. Okay, so now once we have this set up, let's actually go ahead and go into the body of the HTML page. So the first thing which I have done here is that I have created a container class over here, which is going to contain all the elements over here. Now, we won't be creating any rows and columns for the navigation menu because we want that as a separate entity over here at the top. But as soon as we are done with designing the navigation bar, we will actually go ahead and use the row and column layout for the rest of the Bootstrap page. So let's go ahead and start creating a navigation bar. So we'll type in nav class, as we will be using a collapsible navigation bar. So that's going to be navbar expand -LG, which means we only want our navigation bar to expand on larger devices. The navbar is going to be light, and the background color of this is going to be light as well. Let me spell it correctly, and then we are good to go. So now let's go ahead, and once we have this navigation bar, let's actually add the brand, which is nothing but the name of our website. So for that, we will go ahead and we'll create a class over here for the anchor or the link over here. That's going to be navbar brand because we want to represent the brand name over here. And let's say the href for this is going to be hash for now because we don't want to redirect the user anywhere else. And let's say we name this thing as the news. So as this is a news site, let's say we name this thing as the news. So for now, if you open up the web page and hit refresh, as you can see, this is how the navigation bar is going to look like. There's nothing at all over here, just the brand name. You can also go ahead and add an h1 class to this over here in order to make it look like a heading. So now if you go back, hit refresh, as you could see, now your title is a little bit bolder. So now once we have this thing over here, in order to make it collapsible, we need to go ahead and add a button over here, which is going to be the collapse button. In order to create that button, we use the button tag. The class for this is going to be navbar toggler, as this is a toggle button, not a normal button. And the type for this is going to be obviously button. And then we set the as usual properties like the area controls, area expanded, and area label. So let's first set the property for area controls. And this thing is actually going to control the menu which we'll be creating down there. So let's say we name this menu as news menu, and the area expanded for this is going to be false, and the area label for this is going to be equal to, let's say, toggle navigation. So once we have this thing, we are good to go. Let's make sure to end the button tag over here. And I guess there's some issue right over here. We have not closed that yet. And once we close that, now our button is complete. Now this button right here is going to be present. So let me just go ahead, hit refresh. And when we try to reduce the size, as you can see, you still have this button here, but this button does not have any kind of representation. So now in order to add some icon over here, we will go ahead and add a span element in this button tag. So that's going to be span. And the class for span is going to be navbar-toggler-icon. So this is actually going to add a toggler button icon to this thing right here. And henceforth, now if you check the button out by clicking refresh, as you can see, now you have a proper looking button with 3 horizontal lines, and that looks like a toggle button. So once we have this button over here, let's now start building the actual navigation. So we use div class equals, that's going to be collapse navbar-collapse. That means this is a collapsible navbar. We need to assign them this ID. Let's type in news menu. Let's end this div right over here. Now once we have this div, now we need to create a div for holding up the items. So that's going to be div class, that's going to be navbar-nav. And this div is going to hold all the items over here. So the items which we are going to have in this nav are going to be links. So we type in a class equals nav dash item, which is going to mean that these links are nothing but the navigation items, which is a nav dash link. Let's say the href for now for each one of those links is hash. And let's end the tag over here, and let's have some name like home, contact, about, etc. and everything like that over here. So these are just the dummy names. If you want to change it, you can do so as well. So once we have this thing, we are now pretty much good to go. So now let's go ahead and hit refresh and see how the navigation bar looks like. So as you can see, we have the navigation bar over here, but the button is not functional yet. So let me just make sure why exactly is that. Alright, so the reason why the navigation bar is not working is because we forgot to add two major attributes to this nav bar, and that's basically the data toggle and the data target. So whenever you are creating this button right here, you actually need to mention that this button is for a specific target, and that target is nothing but this particular menu, which has an ID equals news menu right here. So what you need to do is that you need to specify the data target over here by typing in data target, and you need to equate it to the actual menu name, which is news menu. And as this news menu is an ID, you need to use the hash ID selector. And also along with that, you need to specify an attribute which is called as data dash toggle, and this needs to be set to collapse over here. So once you do these two changes, let's go ahead and see if the navigation menu works fine. So as you can see, the menu works fine right now after adding these properties. So there are actually a lot of properties over here which you need to remember, and even if you miss one of those, the navigation bar collapse functionality is not going to work. So make sure that you have that right. And as you can see, we are done designing the first part of our Bootstrap website. And that thing is responsive as well. That means if you open it up on a tab, it's going to look like this. And if you open it up on a mobile device, it's going to look something like this, which I think is pretty decent. So in the upcoming lecture, we will go ahead and start creating the Jumbotron for our website. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.